Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us as we begin our May 10th Infrastructure Planning Advisory Committee. I know we have some guests in the audience as well, and some invited guests as well, but that will be participating in our meeting, and we appreciate your attendance here this afternoon. For the benefit of those involved, I appreciate those that are here on the committee, some of which are members, some of you have been designated to be here, so thank you for being here. If you've not been to our headquarters building, this is the Energy and Environment headquarters building. I always like to take a few moments to make you aware of our building provisions. We have an emergency exit door to the right, and so if we were to have, we're not anticipating any kind of alarms this afternoon. We don't have any scheduled alarms. So if you do hear one, we would ask that folks proceed as efficiently as they could to that exit and walk around toward the front of the building. And then we will muster or gather out in the parking lot. We'd like to account for everyone that's here. So don't just jump in your car and leave. We might not have your accounting, but if you would stop for a moment and let us know that you made your way safely out of the building, that would be helpful. If you have other needs, we do have restroom facilities and some snack machines and things down at the center around the elevators if you go that way. So if you have any personal emergency needs, I've got Troy Deal in the back, or Beth Thompson. They're raising it. You just make them aware that you have a need, and they will help make sure that you get the appropriate help in that event. So with that, I'm happy to welcome you here. This is a fantastic facility that we're happy to carry out a lot of good business out of this department. We have our various divisions here that operate out of this building, as well as a few other locations across the state, but this is our headquarters. So with that, I will officially call the meeting to order and mention that we have several things on our agenda. We might, because I know we have several people that have not attended before, we might just quickly go around the room and introduce yourself and who you're representing, your membership on this committee. So I'm gonna look to my right and let Randy Orr introduce himself. So thank you.
I'm not Lori Tudor, in spite of my name badge. I'm Randy Ort with the Arkansas Department of Transportation.
Good afternoon. I'm Chris Kalklaser, Director of the Natural Resources Division, Department of Arkansas Agriculture.
I'm Chris Racy, Chief of Staff for the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jerry Chisholm. I'm the Director for the Department of Commerce Division of Aeronautics.
Good afternoon, AJ Gary, Director of the Arkansas Division of Emergency Management.
Jamie Cook, Cabinet Secretary for the Arkansas Department of Public Safety.
Julie Link, I'm the Chief Administrator of the Environment for the state of Arkansas.
Shane Corey, Chief Counsel, Arkansas Department of Energy and Environment.
Art Spangel, Chief Administrator, Energy, Department of Energy and Environment.
Amy Fetcher, Secretary of Transformation and Shared Services.
I'm Alan McVeigh. I'm the Chief of Staff for the Department of Finance and Administration.
Cody Waits, I'm the Director for the Office of Skills Development within the Department of Commerce.
Jonathan Haskins, Director of DIS.
I'm aware we have several participating by Zoom. I guess I'll turn it to you, Mike. Secretary Preston, I believe you're on the line.
I am. Thank you, Secretary Keogh. Mike Preston, Secretary of Commerce, and apologize I can't be there in person. I'll kind of be in and out, but I know we got some great team members there from Commerce representing various interests. So thanks for letting me join by Zoom.
Happy to have you and hope you can stay. We've got some presentations we'd like to make. I don't know if Secretary Ward was able to join us. Is he on the phone? I know he was traveling this afternoon for committee meetings in Harrison related to Department of Ag business. So I know that we have Chris Kalklaser here, which will definitely represent the department well. So thank you for being here. But with that, I just wanted to basically give folks a little bit of an update on what's going on. As you know, we are approaching the 6-month anniversary of the IIJA Act that was put in place through a bipartisan vote. As the governor likes to say, while our federal represented congressmen and senators did not necessarily vote for the bill. They're embracing the fact that they believe Arkansas should benefit from infrastructure investments that come out of all this investment, and that we should do our share to make sure that those tax dollars that are being spent by our citizens are brought back home, if you will, to better the lives of Arkansans. So we are here assembled as an advisory committee to identify strategies, lay foundations for what will be a 5-year effort, I guess, in terms of establishing how to take funds that will be either provided to the state through formula funding, which many of our departments currently enjoy some federal funds that we're able to then distribute out through grant or other expenditure investment projects, but also some new, not only new increases in those formula funds, but also perhaps just shy of 300 new competitive grant type programs that are currently under development, some of which the rules are still just being developed at the federal level. So we know that we don't know everything right now. I attend meetings as an infrastructure coordinator for the governor through NGA, and it's somewhat of a therapy hour at times because there's so much information coming out to the states. And I'll mention our guest here in a minute, but to just get our arms around that. And we'll talk about how we're trying to simplify the process, or at least make it more transparent, not only to us as a committee and help us understand what we should be doing or what we could be doing, in terms of taking recommendations to the governor or to our commissions about pursuing funds, how we might implement those funds. So how we communicate that to the public about the benefit and how we're making sure this is directed to those areas of most need or most benefit to the state. So really appreciate y'all's commitment on this committee. And I know we're still kind of organizing ourselves around that and trying to formalize that process. So there are some weekly reports that we've established now for this group. And I appreciate that a number of your staffs are sending in weekly reports so that we can just start collecting the information that you're probably more familiar with than I can be aware of. If I try to track all of your work, I wouldn't be able to do my day job for sure, but I'm not sure I could even do that functionally well. So appreciate anything that you can provide us in terms of grant monies that are coming to the state or commitments that have been made for future funding to Arkansas, as well as any potential projects that you and stakeholders are talking about perhaps pursuing through a competitive process. And we're going to talk about how to help resource you in that journey, if you will, going forward. But with that, I know that infrastructure is important to our citizens, not only today, but in the future. And we really want to build on the great work that's already going on in our state and the talent that we have. We know that we are going to have limited resources to carry out many of these programs, and we want to make sure we're building that workforce as well as building a plan to deliver on that infrastructure plan. So I appreciate the role that Commerce plays and others as we work with you on that. And also some other things. So I'll just stop there with that. I did want to mention that I think E&E has now received and I guess it's through Director Ingles' program, or Administrator Ingles' program has received the first check that we know of that has come to Arkansas through the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act in terms of additional funding that was put into our LIFE program, which is our low-income home heating assistance program. It's a program that benefits those of need that perhaps have difficulty paying utility bills during certain seasons, both summer and winter. And there's additional funds that have been brought to Arkansas through that. That money was brought over, and I believe has now gone through legislative review and authorized to be used. So that is our first opportunity to take some money over through the committees and have it reviewed by the committee on how that money will be distributed in Arkansas. So that process has begun. As other departments receive money or pursue money and are prepared to expend it, those type of reviews, I know Alan, you're here representing DFNA, and that we will work with you closely and work with the department to make sure those appropriate reviews go back, as we know the appropriation bills require consultation and review by the legislative committee to make sure that we're fully aware of how this money will be expended, at least for the purposes of the state level programs. I'm not sure how they're addressing local level programs, so, but we'll talk about that as well. I think in our national calls, one of the main topics we talk about is how do we make sure that we are enhancing investments through our state efforts to the local communities and our counties, our rural areas, and how do we make sure that we're leveraging off of the priorities that are being set at the local level. And so that is part of what today's agenda really focuses on, is for, and I appreciate those of you attending, that we could have you come. I know we have two presenters. We have the Association of Arkansas Counties that are here today, as well as the Arkansas Municipal League, that we're asking to come in and just talk to us a little bit, or this committee and those that are listening, just about what your conversation is around IIJA, the grantees that you may have, because in many cases, these grants can be directly funded to a county or to a city, does not have to come through a state entity, and how we might figure out a way that we're not duplicating our work to seek money, but that we're actually enhancing our success in winning these funds, and also leveraging and building to be able to kind of partner on projects as well. So with that, I guess I'll go in the order of the agenda. So I'm not sure who's going to speak on behalf of the Association of Arkansas Counties. It looks like Mark's raising his hand over here, so I'm going to bring him forward. And I think we have a mic back that will bring it to you. And if you want to come up and speak before the committee, we'd love to listen to what what you're hearing from your membership in terms of priorities and how you see this act benefiting your constituency. So thank you so much for being here.
Certainly, Chair.
You'll start with introducing yourself, just so
Mark Whitmore, I'm Chief Counsel for the Association of Arkansas Counties. Good to be here. Good to be able to make just a brief discussion or dialogue with the committee. When we tried to digest this act, and of course, a lot of what you were talking about, Chairman Keogh, was the idea of we need to collaborate with the state agencies, the counties and cities. One thing that comes to mind is that we've got a road system in Arkansas. It's the constituents, the citizens, it matters not to them whether it's a state highway or a county road or a city street. It's a system of roads. So when you're trying to convey industry or livestock or poultry, all of our agricultural goods to and from, or just the citizens to and from a place, we look at it as a system. We got a good partnership with the Municipal League and the RDOT. And so we feel like if we could collaborate, partner, that would be wise, because there are limited federal funds and we want to try to take advantage of those. Back, I guess, when Hutchinson became governor, it pretty became apparent that there was a pretty significant need. We got the half penny renewed, potentially. Also, the legislature passed 3 cents, 6 cents wholesale additional motor fuels tax. And part of that endeavor was basically a needs study. And one thing that we know we have needs of, and I'm sure the citizens would agree, are bridges that are structurally deficient, bridges that are functionally obsolete. Basically, they're rated poor. Arkansas county roads, we've got 50,000 miles of county roads, county maintained roads in Arkansas. I think the highway department has 16,700 or so, thereabouts. The municipal league, the cities have about 16,000. Federal government had a thing called Map 21, where they went out and we've got a lot better maps than we're used to that show what forest roads are and fish. So when you think about the system, what the public use, they used all three. The citizens get on the interstate, they drive local roads, it's just the nature of the beast. So right now in Arkansas, we've received this from RDOT. We've got 254 poor rated bridges. Those are bridges that are structurally deficient, functionally obsolete. When you turn on the news and you see in Pittsburgh, there's a bus that gets stranded because the bridge fails, that's a poor rated bridge. So when you're looking at needs, it's pretty obvious. A lot of these bridges are WPA bridges, built in the 30s or 40s. Some of them are old railroad bridges. So in essence, we think that some of this money, and we're oblivious to this, we don't understand the federal funding and the dynamics of applying, not our world. But we would hope that we could partner in that manner to go seek significant monies to get some of these 254 bridges that the counties maintain basically repaired, replaced. We think that's a high priority. I've got 2 county judges here with me. Judge President of the Lonoke County Judge Doug Irwin, Brandon Ellison here, Polk County is here, and we've got a couple of things they can add or subtract on that. But we do think as a group, the County Judges Association, that almost a no-brainer is to submit as much as possible to seek federal monies to replace these poorly rated bridges. If you think about it, what happens to a bridge, the weight limit gets lower. So then school buses that are loaded are incapable of using it. The kids have to go miles the other way just to get to school. So I think you're probably familiar with these bridges. We've worked on them over the years. There used to be more of them. We, as county judges, with the half penny and the 3 cents, 6 cents, we've actually reduced the number substantially over the years, but 254 is a pretty daunting number. And it will take, this would greatly expedite, if we could obtain funding for those, it would greatly expedite the repair and replacement of these bridges, and the system would be more functional because people wouldn't have to drive due to the weight restrictions. And of course, we all know what industries we got: oil and gas, we've got livestock, poultry, agri. There's a lot of industry that depends on these bridges. A couple other categories, Director Keogh, with the unpaved roads, and Judge Ellison can speak to those a little bit more depth. We collaborated on the unpaved roads program, which we think, and again, we don't understand the federal legislation. We think that the state agencies that are our partners, ADQ, Department of Energy, ANOC, Game and Fish, Farm Bureau, and others, the unpaved roads program, what it does, and I don't want to steal Judge Ellison's thunder, but in essence, if we can figure out where the streams flow, where when there's a 3 or 4 inch rain, where does all that dirt go? And it ends up in our rivers and streams and water bodies. And that degrades our water quality. It impacts fishing. It impacts the clean water, which is a big important reason why this building exists. And in essence, that program has had funding from ADQ, about $300,000. We do have access to some federal funds, and it's been a training program. And just to be, I guess, direct about it, our county road, if you can train the county road crews in maintaining the road system to utilize these best practices and to build and maintain the county roads, the dirt and gravel roads, in a way that they don't blow out and end up in the stream, it reduces the maintenance cost over time. It's a training tool, and it demonstrates these best practices. It also results in clean water and our Arkansas being the natural state. It's a modest amount. So if we could get substantial, or if we could get funding for that program, I think it would check a lot of boxes. Now, don't ask me how the application would work. Don't ask me which state agency would be the main champion of this. I don't know, but I think that would be a major change, because that would go on for decades. You'd have road crews that would learn how to utilize this. While it's true that the unpaved roads program has been a success, ballpark, we might have had 15 counties, mostly in the Ozarks, mostly in the Ouachitas, that have done this. Well, we've got 75 counties. And then we could use the idea of spreading the word on how to properly maintain our local roads and bridges and dirt and gravel roads. Some of the other parts about Arkansas, I haven't looked recently, but Arkansas generally ranks 5th to 7th in the most depth on rural roads. Might be terrain, there's a lot of reasons, but in essence, to the extent that this federal funding is attentive or mindful of deaths, that you want to have safer roads, rural roads. Well, we've got 50,000 miles of rural roads county. The state has the secondary road system, which is somewhat rural. There are city roads that are small cities. So there's bound to be a way to look at enhancing the safety of our county roads, our city streets, and our state highways. We actually are going to meet with the state police, Secretary Cook, and try to ascertain, in a perfect world, where are these accidents occurring? what can be done to enhance the safety on these roads. Sometimes it's as simple as the signage, reflecting signs, curve ahead, the yellow regulatory, not regulatory, advisory signs that you see that help warn people driving of the curve ahead and chevrons and things to help control their traffic. Because truth be known, lots of Arkansas rural roads don't have that. You can drop down some areas where you don't have that fog line. Some roads don't even have a center stripe. So some of that has been because just the plain truth is we've been too busy trying to maintain what we got. And the idea of attending, being more mindful of the safety aspects, seems like this federal legislation would have that in mind, that would check extra boxes, because if you're going to spend money to save people's lives, it seems like that'd be a worthy endeavor. Other than that, we're probably digesting this just like much of y'all. It's beyond our capacities. We don't know what pigeonhole of money is good for what. We're going to compete with other states, other cities and counties, but we are very open to the idea of collaborating with the committee, with other state agencies. Now, just to be bold about it, I don't know that our counties have the capacity to file an application. So if there's going to be a bridge application, we'd like to partner, if there's going to be one on the safety of the traveling public, to enhance safety, we need to have a partner. Same thing with the unpaved roads. I think we've got a bunch of stakeholders that want the unpaved roads program to expand, be sustainable, to get not just past in counties, get all 75. So truth be known, that's kind of why we're here today, is because this is a daunting task. I can guarantee you none of our 75 counties are going to have the capacity to pursue grants on their own, and we don't want to. We think we ought to work in a team effort on that. If you don't mind, I'd like Judge Ellison maybe expand on the unpaved roads program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And just to clarify, Brandon Ellison from Polk, that's P-O-L-K, Polk County, not to be confused with Polk County, from Mena in the Washita's. Mark did a pretty good job of telling you what the unpaved roads program is, but I'll go a little bit further. 6 or 7 years ago, I don't remember exactly when, I know Secretary Fetcher really helped us on this. We established a program. We kind of modeled it after one that was in Pennsylvania. And so Mark has to talk about a bridge falling in Pennsylvania. Doesn't have to be for bridges. But what I really like about the unpaved roads program right now, as many of y'all have probably heard, in the infrastructure business right now, it's very, very difficult to get employees, very difficult to get contractors. It's really clogged up. These projects are generally done, not always, but generally done with the county road crews. And on top of that, they're going to use 50% of their money. They're going to use 50% of the county money, which virtually suggests that this is going to be a successful project, or they're just not going to do it, right? I mean, they're using 50% of their own money. They're probably going to have a good project. It's very broad for the sense of what y'all are trying to do. It's infrastructure money, but it's very broad. It spills over into the environmental part of it, where not only are we getting some infrastructure done, but we're taking care of the environment at the same time, hopefully getting back some litigation from environmentalists and that type of thing, that's showing that we are proactive in Arkansas and we're doing these things like we should be doing. On the way up here today, I got an email from a game and fish biologist asking me about an unpaved road project in Polk County because he was concerned about an endangered species, the leopard darter. The spawn has been less in the last couple of years. So, there is a lot of room for this. I think if we could secure maybe some funding for it, we also believe we'll get other streams of revenue for it. And we kind of kept it alive for 5 or 6 years. I can't remember exactly how long, but there are several counties that have taken advantage of it. Polk County has taken advantage of it. We've got a couple of grants so far. And just to show you what the U.S. Fish and Wildlife thinks about it, they actually gave an award to this program. So Southeast Director anyway, for the Southeast District. So I think it's a very, very good program, and I think it's a very good place to put some money, and the counties are going to match that. So, and I would be happy to answer any questions about the program if you have them. If you have no questions, I'm going to turn it over.
I do.
Yes.
I know that in working with it from an E&E standpoint, environment from our DQ group, I've also been told that it's also somewhat of a public safety program, because many of these roads, perhaps it may be building them up higher so that they're less prone to floods. You know, you're trying to minimize the washout of the road, right? And you know, so you, in terms of turn around, don't drown kind of warnings, you know, you can hopefully build these roads up to where it might be your highest area that floods a lot, or, you know, you have more like have deaths during a quick, you know, kind of rapid rains like we had last week or something, where you might have people where you had rescues that were necessary and stuff like that. So have y'all had that experience, that it's benefited you from a public safety?
Yes, so that will vary from project to project, but a good application for this will have a string crossing. That's what, you know, ranks high. It's got a string crossing, and you're going to try to mitigate any sedimentation going into this string crossing, to elevate roads to keep the sedimentation from washing off. And so in many cases, that is the case. Actually, one project we did included a bridge to actually get you out of the water crossing. So these projects are typically in areas where maybe the county wouldn't go full boat on it. I mean, as y'all know, and I know y'all have heard us whine over the years about these things, we don't have enough resources to do every little project we'd like to do on the 1,000 miles of road in our county. And so there are many, many projects, as much as we hate to admit, that are they just don't get done. And so we have to prioritize. So 50% of the funding helps us prioritize some of these areas because many of them would never get done without it. So.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I know Secretary Ward, I believe, has joined us, and I know that Chris Pleasure, y'all administer that program now. The funding was diverted from some funds that we had at E&E, and appreciate the great administration now by Department of Ag and through the Division of Natural Resources on that program. But this is something I would be interested in. Definitely will bring up at the national level to see where it might fit. And we'll talk about some of the resources that we're going to bring to bear to try to be successful in finding, especially these competitive grants that might be out there. It may not be immediately, but it's just knowing when the deadline's going to be. We've got deadlines actually in May already on some of them, not on these specific type of projects, but on some of the projects when you start talking about, I think broadband has some deadlines next month. So there's just some things that are really happening quickly. Anyway, I believe.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here, and that's very helpful to me, and I assume the other members on the committee.
Secretary Keogh, all of the committee. I'm Chris Valanza, Director at the Association of Counties. And I just briefly wanted to get up and tell you all thank you for the work you're doing by sitting on this committee. This is going to be a process, as y'all well know. And all the grants that we've seen bullet points on right now, we're seeing rules fleshed out. And what we think these grants may be for are probably not what they're all going to be for in a year when they start writing the rules. And so we're here today to tell you guys that we're ready to partner with you moving forward. In my mind, and I am a little bit county centric for good reason, in my mind, there are really the two largest infrastructure issues that we think the federal government's wanting to deal with right now are going to be broadband and road and bridge infrastructure. There's a ton of other stuff written in this bill as well, and we get that. There's a lot of good things that we can do with that money if used properly. But we're here today to open channels of communication with you guys so that as we move forward, the county voice can be heard, and when you know who to talk to when you have questions about what we're thinking. And also, I want to thank you, Secretary Keogh. Your leadership on the unpaved roads work and your help financially with that has been wonderful. It's a great program that is going to yield a lot of great results down the road. So thank you all.
Well, thank you for being here. Does anyone have, oh wait, we have a question for you if you don't mind staying with us a moment.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly who wants to answer this, but I was just curious, going back to the bridges comments and the 254, I believe, that were poorly rated. I mean, what studies have been done to understand what the total cost of, I don't know if that's for RDOT or somebody, but to fix those 254 bridges?
So we don't have studies yet on cost to fix them, but the studies themselves that show us which bridges are functionally obsolete or structurally deficient, those actually are done by the highway department. RDOT goes out and inspects those bridges for us. We're very thankful for the work that y'all do there, even though we don't like hearing that some of our bridges fail to pass muster. It is good to know. And unfortunately, sometimes we do have to shut down a bridge to school bus traffic or anything that exceeds a certain way.
Randy, do you have a comment or, okay. Yeah, and that may be important that this committee talk, how do we come up with, I'm sure if we pursued a grant, we would want to be able to put some level of estimate, cost estimate on addressing those priority locations, be it that it would be some amount that we would spend over the next 4 years addressing all of these bridges. I don't know, I doubt they would all be funded in one swoop, or even maybe a certain percentage of them, but Mark may have something to add to that.
I know RDOT, they have a book that RDOT does when they estimate projects on bridge replacement. So you could theoretically take that book and it's the number of square feet on a bridge deck, the length. So you could, for lack of a better word, guesstimate the ranges of what it would cost in global sense.
Yeah, what he's talking about is we do have a cost per square foot for types of bridges that we could apply to that and come up with a gross estimate. But our role is to inspect, determine which ones are functionally obsolete, which ones are structurally deficient, pass that information on to the owners. But happy to work with them if we need to come up with some type of gross estimate.
Well, and keep in mind, these bridges, since they're poor, they're not capable of, you can maintain them or sustain them. If you get to replace them, like Randy's saying, costs are going up, by the way, if you're a contractor. So we could collaborate with RDOT and a consultant and come up with a range based upon replacement cost, based upon square footage. It would be a range in an aggregate. So if that helps you.
That's helpful. Thank you so much. Well, with that, I'm going to move on to, does anybody on the phone have a question or comment before I move forward? All right, well, thank you. I know I have representation from the Arkansas Municipal League, I believe, today, and appreciate you coming forward and speaking on behalf of the perspective of the cities here in the state, and what you might be thinking about and working on, or hearing from your membership about efforts that the municipal league or cities themselves may be taking, as well as any way the state can be helpful to you in those initiatives.
Right. And so first of all, I want to echo the county's roads, bridges. Obviously, we have our own roads and bridges, many roads. Obviously, roads and bridges are a huge need for us. But I do want to say this to start off with. We, like Chris said, we are hugely invested in collaborating with the state in any way we can. And I looked at DFA, particularly on this with the CARES Act money that came through that the state was kind enough to send our way. DFA was remarkable. And I mean that not just because you're here, sir, but because y'all were in collaborating with us, partnering with us to make sure that those who were eligible to receive that money, received the money and did it the right way. And so we look at this as sort of the same way, because our number one thing to consider for us is there's 499 cities and towns. And if you've ever worked for an organization that represents 499 entities, it's very hard to get information out and educate them, although we do a remarkable job of doing so. But we definitely needed DFA's help when it came to the CARES Act. And that was a great partnership. And so we see the value of collaborating with the state. As far as the needs for the use of the infrastructure money, number one for us is water. Water is going to be number one. The last legislative session, there was a bill passed, which we call affectionately the water bill. Senator Alan Clark did yeoman's work on his water commission and had monthly meetings, long meetings to address and identify the real needs out there. For at least municipal systems in particular, from our perspective, and identified it and found ways that and that we agreed that could help us be better because obviously some of our water systems are underfunded, undercapitalized, and not able to handle a break in a water line. And then they go to the state and ask for help. And we understand that we need to be able to handle our own issues. So I think the water bill is identified the issues with water. And we want to use that water bill to make water systems better across the state. And sewer is right behind. Now, the water bill is not the water and sewer bill, but sewer is right behind because with water usually comes sewer, at least for most of our cities and towns that have their own water department, they have their own sewer department. And I know Secretary Ward, through a survey that we helped administer, identified a lot of need across the state. Needs that we can't possibly meet ourselves, but we can help with your help, at least meet a good chunk of them. So we look at the infrastructure bill as number one for water and sewer needs from our perspective. So I'm not trying to on these here. There are sisters and brothers over there, but so water and sewer really is our number one focus. It's very timely today because I got an email from a city not an hour ago to talk about the second biggest need we feel, and we feel it's broadband. We really have worked tirelessly. Blake Gary's here in the audience to understand the way that broadband can be, how we can partner with the state on broadband. I know it's a very huge topic, and we don't pretend to know the ins and outs of it, but we do know that we're ready and willing. And we're getting those questions a lot from our cities on how can we help get better broadband across the state and how the cities and towns can make that happen. I know you're working tirelessly on it like a lot of other people, but we look at the infrastructure bills maybe helping with that as well. And kind of a smaller thing, one that's sort of popping up recently is electric vehicles and charging stations for electric vehicles. And that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue for our cities and towns. I think I've had 2 or 3 calls in the last week and a half about a potential, how does electric vehicle charging stations work in my city? Where do they need to go? What are the zoning issues with it? So there is a desire to see how that's going to work. I know that's very forward thinking, or at least a little bit forward thinking right now, but electric vehicles are another issue that we've identified. So roads and bridges, water, sewer, broadband, and maybe electric vehicles, or at least electric charging stations. But I do want to, again, echo the partnership and the collaboration we look forward to with the state, and we've enjoyed with the state. The state has always been a good partner with both the cities, and I think I speak for the counties as well. And I want you to know what we're doing, and what the counties too. I'll speak for the counties on this too. What we've done in the past 2 years when it comes to these federal dollars and educating our folks on how to spend dollars appropriately, how to report dollars appropriately, how to make sure that you comply with audit requirements. And it is a very big task. And Karen Curry's in here, who we were blessed to hire right when the pandemic started, and then the federal dollars started to be a thing. And so we are dedicated to doing this right. I know the counties are as well. And so I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to y'all and listen to us. And we look forward to the partnership going forward. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and applaud that. I know E&E is working closely we formed a joint office to stood that joint office up as we pursue the investment in electric vehicle infrastructure. So hopefully that will help. Some of that is really focused on federal funds that will come first, focused on the interstate systems as prioritized by Federal Highway Administration, but assuming we meet those requirements quickly or in the first priority range of funding, then we would be able to actually start looking at all our other roadways that are important for commerce and tourism and agriculture, all those things that will ultimately be beneficial. I know that a number of corporations are looking at fleet charging, which is a whole different challenge on our utility grid, and very close coordination with us, the Public Service Commission, but the Department of Transportation's, I know, working on a plan. I sat on a conversation this week on that. So you will hear more and more engagement in the next couple of months, as that plan is due to the federal government in August. So you'll probably see it sometime sooner than that. So, but we also have some other infrastructure funds that are going out through Director Bingel's program of the Energy Office right now, helping cities. And we just had 50 applications for one grant that we had that ended last week. So now we're trying to figure out, we didn't know there was that much interest in it. So that's going to be fantastic to go through and look at what opportunities the state would have to use that money and expend that money to bolster investment in some of our cities. I think the rural area is important too on infrastructure, and both for, like you said, for roads, but also for water and sewer. And I know Secretary Ward, I don't know if he's able to speak at this point, but I know that committee that we formed he chaired under the Rescue Act funds, and some of our departments participated in, really did try to land some recommendations on that. So Secretary Ward, are you able to speak to that? Oh, well, maybe, would you be willing to take that question, Chris?
Sure. Yeah, there, as part of the needs survey that was done last summer, it was identified about 5 billion in needs for water and wastewater infrastructure around the state. There are a lot of communities, especially with population shift, that they just don't have enough ratepayers to take care of their systems. And that's a big issue in the state. It's something we're focused on. We are receiving some dollars, infrastructure, 90 some odd million that's coming to the state. About 46% of that, though, has to be used for lead pipe replacement. So we're trying to figure that part out still, but we hope to have some funds through infrastructure, and then one day maybe through ARPA as well, American Rescue Plan, that we can address some of the water and wastewater needs. But you're right. I mean, we have some serious issues in the state.
Thank you. And I know that also, again, at the national level, the White House released a rural playbook, I think is what they coined it. And I believe we've shared it now with the committee members. If you haven't seen it, you may want to look at that. It identifies some strategies to really make this funding more flexible for local counties and cities to pursue the money. It talks about forgiveness loans, so perhaps turning more into a grant scenario, because some of the matching requirements, especially some of our overburdened communities or small communities that can't, basically create the systems they need under a rate structure that's reasonable for them to pay, is going to be important. So, I mean, that's where we really talked about how to benefit the rural areas. I think, Chris, you want to add to that?
Yeah, and I can speak to that too. Under the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, 49% of the funds that we're going to receive, the plus up as part of Infrastructure and Jobs Act, has to be given out as principal forgiveness, but it has to go to disadvantaged communities. That's one of the points in the. But a lot of our communities qualify as disadvantaged. So
yeah, I was going to say, we've seen maps. Each department seems to have their own map, which is interesting because we're one state and our population doesn't shift around based on need. But I think the Federal Highway Administration has a map of Arkansas, and maybe Department of that, or USDA has I think there's also a DOE map. They all kind of represent the communities a little differently, but and interpret the statistic. But for the base, except for the core, I mean, even within the counties like Pulaski County and Washington County, Benton County, there's still areas within those counties that would qualify in terms of meeting those thresholds of need. So I think it's just a matter as we work through that. So are there other questions that any of you have regarding cities, counties? So I think.
I would just add that, John, I appreciated your comments with respect to DFA and the partnership, and we appreciated working with the cities and the counties across the state with the CARES funding, and that was a major undertaking on your part, and we were pleased to be a part of that. Just to give an update, there's a lot of federal dollars that are yet to come to the state. We mentioned the fact that there's additional dollars from the American Rescue Plan. We've received notification that we should get the second $786 million tranche of funds to the state, probably within late June, maybe early July is what we're beginning to think. We thought it was going to be a little bit later, but it may come earlier. But also with that, it's my understanding, and John, you may be able to correct me, but I think the non-entitlement communities are going to receive their second tranche of funds as well. So when we're thinking about some of these infrastructure dollars, the programs that are going to be competitive programs, it may be worth considering for the cities or the county to think about, because my understanding is we may be able to use ARPA funds as a match for the infrastructure dollars as well. So it could be that we may want to consider looking at that, and as you look at competitive grant opportunities, you may be able to leverage some of those dollars if you haven't already got them earmarked or they're not already committed in that process. So, and the state will look at the possibility of creating a pool, because we're going to need matching funds at the state level as well, and how we would be able to accomplish that, whether it's from surplus funds or whether it's from that next round of ARPA funds.
That's a very good point, Alan. And I know that we've been looking at it internally, because I mean, with our formula-driven programs, we have match established in many cases, or we have ways to leverage that money out. But as you look at pursuing some competitive grants, looking to make sure that we have that match. I know that's one of the, on the EV side, we were looking at a public-private investment so that the state would not own infrastructure, they would not operate it or maintain it, but we would have, we would basically incentivize private investment at the locations we need to meet those federal requirements first and foremost. Now, there are some competitive grants that we may want to talk about, to your point, for the cities and counties that go beyond the interstate system. We can do that to close gaps sooner than later, and we don't have to wait as long, particularly in a rural state like Arkansas. So, and we are kind of in that, I've used the word, and presses might be on this phone, but so far they haven't been. Donut, we don't want to be the donut hole, you know, of transportation, because that would just shift commerce or tourism around our state rather than through our state, which is not helpful. So all that's important that we talk about, and I think that's where our partnership will be beneficial, and making sure that we have the right, not only investment plan, but also working closely with those partners, getting the zoning right and the utilities right, and you know, because we don't want to raise the cost on someone else by taking all the substation capacity off for one user, and then the next one has to pay for a whole new substation. I mean, there's some reality checks that we go through that process. So that's why I said my hair hurts so on all this stuff, but it's good. Anyway, is there any other comments? I appreciate the comments made today. I don't know what our next step with you folks should be, but we'll probably be talking to you again. If you have more specific plans that you want to work on, feel free to reach out to any of our members, perhaps, you know, on these cost estimates or these ideas on where your cities may need some assistance. Or I've been approached by other folks like school districts that might be looking for grants, or, you know, converting buses to electric vehicle infrastructure. So there's a lot of people out there looking at pursue. I think that is one of the competitive grants that can happen in the next couple months, so that people may be putting that application together. Again, I'll turn to the phone to make sure I'm not leaving them behind. Anyone on the phone? Well, with that, I'm going to move to the next topic. I know we want to keep this meeting on track. It is my opportunity now to update the committee, and perhaps those of you in the audience, as you talk about resource limitations, on how do we get these applications done? How do we know? How do we really understand what project we want to put before the federal government, or before our legislature or governor, to go recommend that we seek funding? And one of the initiatives that was outlined in the proclamation that is an executive order by the governor allowed this group to evaluate the possibility of hiring a consultant that could help us ascertain first the funding and the priorities and the higher chance of success. I'm happy to say that through the authorization of the members of this committee, a subcommittee was formed and a procurement began, and thanks to the Office of State Procurement, they did a fantastic job in trying to figure out how to do this, because it's really complicated when we're not all going out, when it's coming out of 10 different departments or more. But I appreciate your team, and I know Mitch Ross is here and his staff, the leadership they showed. And then those of you on the committee, some of you had folks that some of you were on the committee or had designees in the procurement process. So that process did move forward. We issued procurement documents. We had proposals. It was fast tracked through an appropriate process for important time-sensitive work. And so that now we had 4 responding companies that came back, all very esteemed consultants that, you know, brought in their qualifications and presented. The committee members, and I'll just mention their names real quick if I can find them. I had them written down, but I've now lost that. So the committee members, I know that actually OSP Tanya Freeman helped do the process. She did a fantastic job. I know she picked that up. But Director Tudor, Andy Babbitt from DFNA, Chris Racy from Game Fish, Caitlin Bennett, Kyle Key, and myself, as well as Judge Porsche from the Broadband Office, all participated in the review of the procurement documents as well as the interview process, and made the scoring recommendations. We moved this very rapidly, we believe. Trying to get all our schedules coordinated was quite a nightmare, but otherwise we got it done, and that recommendation has moved forward to the successful signature this morning or yesterday of a contract. And I believe we may have a representative in the room. I don't know. That contract was made public this morning at 10 a.m. We have recommended the selection of Deloitte. They are a national consultant. They're very well connected at the federal level in terms of understanding what the federal agencies want. In some cases, they've been engaged as some of these other consultants that talked to us in writing some of the rules and understanding that. They also are well equipped to provide resources here in Little Rock to write applications, to make sure those applications hit those bullets that will win the money. So I think you're going to find that that master services agreement could be helpful to your department. And so that resource is developed. I'm not sure, they've talked about how they will also have a toolbox that'll show city and county involvement and how we can benefit those. So we may want to talk to you guys, but again, we will contract them independently through our department. So if you want to use Deloitte, that contract will be available to you, and you would just define a scope of work. They would work up the cost estimates. You would take that. That would actually go through our legislative review committee from what our ALC review, as I understand it. But I'm gonna let Mitch correct me on any of this. But and then you'd be able to put them on board to do that. They may even be able to provide you staff to run a program if you got the money. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for this consultant, or they can bring in other resources. Now, that doesn't limit you from using your own. I know DOT and several departments already have consultants that are authorized and have gone through procurement. Welcome to use any of those as well, but we will try to use Deloitte to help organize our input to this committee and to the governor's office. So we'll probably be having them look at our weekly reports that we're doing to see if there's a way to make that information more manageable, more transparent, and in more of a dashboard type format. So we'll try to figure out a way to fund that. And I don't know how we're going to do that just yet, but they're interested in doing some of the cross-cutting strategies. They're very familiar with they were already talking about how do you take your Rescue Act funds and use that to meet your matches. So they're very familiar with how to do that. And so I think they're going to be a great resource. And for many of us who are already limited on staff, we want our staff to continue to do the great work they do, but folks can really step up and make us successful in this venture. So is there someone here in the audience from Deloitte? I don't know if they actually came or not. The way this process works, well, Mitch, I think there's now, after it's gone public, there's actually a period of days that any of the 14 days, is it 14?
So the contract goes live
May 25th. So if you have a competitive grant that you want to pursue, or that the deadline is between now and May 25th, they're not available to help you. but hopefully going forward, after we get past May and this contract they're ready to go. They have actually already populated a tool with all the Arkansas information. And they did that proactively prior to selection. So that was something that we thought was beneficial. I know as a committee that they could hit the ground running as soon as they're signed on the dotted line. So if you're interested, we will continue. We'll provide you those contacts at Deloitte that you can reach out to. And I'm sure that they will come back probably to our next meeting when it's beyond contest, that they can share with us how they would want to work with us. But I wanted to thank those members of the committee that helped us get to this point. I think we are one of the first states in the country to actually retain services. That was also a goal, because we didn't want to get behind and not have contractors that could do this. And so this is good that we can use them. I know other states are debating how to best bring on resources as well. And so I know people have been, we offered our procurement documents after we got far enough in the process that they wouldn't get ahead of us. So anyway, but we've shared those now at NGA with others so that they can use those. So is there any questions about that process, or Mitch, did you want to elaborate any more on it? Did I say anything wrong? Okay, good. I hope so. I'm trying to be like, so, and this all had to be done in confidence, or we would have brought this back to you, as a recommendation to the committee. The way the process works is I learned that, once we were in the process, we could not share our information with anyone. So we took our authority as your representative to move forward on this and hope that it benefits these departments. Anyway, by giving a consultant an opportunity to come support us. They do have a fully staffed office here in Arkansas and are ready to go. So wanted to mention that. Is no questions? I guess in terms of next steps, I continue to urge you to do our staff reports, and I know our staff over there, Dan Pilkington and Tricia Treese, have done a yeoman's job. They continue to keep us informed and things, and hopefully they're getting you a copy. You're seeing that report. I'm trying to send them back out once we get them collected into a joint report to both you as well as the governor's office, and they're appreciative of that. But encourage you to continue. Or is anyone, we might just round robin, is there anyone here, and I know I'm doing this without notice, but is there anyone currently actively working on an application that has a deadline coming up that you would like to make the committee aware of? Because I know that's something the governor would like us to bring to him as well, if there is. Like I said, Chris, you want to?
I'll just add, we're not necessarily working on an application, but we are working on our intended use plan for the state, which is something we have to do for our state revolving fund every year. So we are in that process. That'll come first. Application will come second.
So my chief counsel over here is suggesting that perhaps appropriate next step would be going ahead and scheduling an IPAC meeting with Deloitte fairly soon, or with staff if you're not available, but making sure that someone from each department has a chance to kind of we will have a kickoff meeting of sorts with them, even though we don't have a separate forum to pay for to do that, but we'll figure this out. And so we would like to bring them into it, and we can do that by Zoom or whatever we need to with those staff. But like I said, they do have an Arkansas office and a manager, so currently do work in the state. So I guess also I recognized a couple of our staff, but I should have mentioned that I believe Lucy Cross is in the back of the room. She's actually coordinating on our weekly report. So Lucy, thank you for that. And Julie Nickel, who's I don't believe in the room, but it may be on the phone, is working with Lucy and helping us get those reports done. So I have asked, there is some meetings next week in DC. I'll be up in DC for presenting to a couple of conferences with the American Society of Civil Engineers on infrastructure they've had, and then a green hydrogen conference. But at the end, I have commitments to return back to Oklahoma to meet with some corporate entities about our hydrogen proposal through DOE. But I know that Tricia Treese will attend a White House event the end of next week on our behalf, which I think is really just reflection of the 6-month anniversary and the effort. So there'll be a states kind of roundtable with at the White House. So she's planning to attend that on our behalf. If anyone, we can send one representative unless someone wants to raise their hand, but we just went ahead and made that decision to have her go as our staff representative. With that, I don't believe I have any further business. As far as the next meeting, we'll look at dates. I know it's getting busy as we move into the summer months, but we also have a window of time that we should take, also remain focused on. So I would ask you to kind of look at these dates, because I think this month has some competitive grant deadlines, but May particularly starts bringing up some that could be valuable. I know a few of them are already passed, but there were some airports. You guys want airport? There's some airport money out there. There's different things that are being funded, some of which will recur on an annual basis, but at least this first pass of money has been
awarded, so, or not awarded yet, but grants have been, the deadlines have been passed. But is there any, if you pay attention to that so that we can make sure, and I think that's where our consultant will help us. They will probably begin giving us specific reminders on what's coming up and set up project meetings with us to help us plan if we want to pursue an application or not. So they may do that prospectively with each of you, I would anticipate. So, well, thank you for your time today. Thank you for these extras. These are great presentations that we heard today. I think this is helpful to hear what your needs are and what your priorities are and ways that we can benefit you as we look forward to our development of grant applications. So thanks. I guess I'll dismiss the meeting based on that. So, thank you.